Alright boys, today we're going to be looking at 10 of the best returning Pokemon in the Teal Mask, aka the first DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, I'm assuming these Pokemon will all be legal in Regulation E, and also because this is part 1 of the DLC, we will obviously not be touching on all Pokemon that have currently been revealed coming out in the DLC. For those of you who want to know, I guess, what is coming out in the Teal Mask and what is coming out in the Indigo Disc, you can check out Cerebi here. As you can see here, they got the list of everything coming out in the Teal Mask. Bunch of Pokemon here. If you want to check it out more in depth yourself, go check it out there. But for now, let's just jump into the Pokemon. So, the first one here I'm going to touch on is basically two of the main weather setters. So we've got Alolan Ninetails there. Now, I do think regular Ninetails also, may have a place in the meta. But I do think Alolan Ninetails will definitely be the better of the two. Mainly because I do think Torkoal kind of outclasses Ninetails. But I do think Alolan Ninetails outclasses a Abomasnow. Now, what does this mon do? Well, first of all, if we take a look at the stats here, you can see Alolan Ninetails is a lot faster than basically like any other weather setter we have. Its bulk is decent, especially on the special end. It doesn't hit that hard. Its physical defense is, it leaves a bit to be desired. But when you factor in the fact that, with Snow Warning here, that defense stat then also gets boosted by 50%. So if we quickly just drop this down here, we'll drop this to level 50. So you take a look at this, right? So 120 base special defense, pretty damn good. All it takes here is like 4 EVs, and then all of a sudden that goes up to like, what's that? That's 48 added on top. So we're looking at roughly 144 defense stat there, I think if my math's correct, which is pretty damn absurd. And then you just factor in the fact that this mon just, again, it's really quick, right? With Timid, you outspeed a lot of Pokemon. And if you want, you can also run like quite a bit of Spatak on this mon. You could even, invest quite a bit into your HP stat. Personally, I do think going for something like this is probably just like your best play. Probably just drop that down and then like split it into your defenses. Again, if you want, you can run HP here. But what this mon does like really, really well is it gets up the screens essentially, right? Because obviously with Aurora Veil here, you get both, reflect and, light screen in one. And then also this mon's just incredibly quick. Obviously, it doesn't have, the prankster ability like things like Grimmsnarl and Klefki. But this one also has like insane offense, right? Because you factor in the fact that it has Blizzard, it has something like Moonblast, right? All of a sudden, this mon, even though its special attack stat is pretty average, it has 2 incredibly spammable stab moves, which make it, quite annoying, especially like if you're pairing it up with something, say like you put it like next to a Chiyu, potentially Tornadus as well. Like a lot of times you'll see this with something like Speed Control, whether it be Tornadus, potentially Whimsicott when DLC 2 comes out. Even like things like, Iron Hands potentially where, you lead with this plus Hands fakes out, gets up the screens, then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, Iron Hands is going to be a massive problem behind the screens, but at the same time, you don't want this Ninetales just sitting there spamming Blizzards with, this incredible speed stat. And then also just to round it out, this one has like a lot of other good moves, right? Obviously, Freeze Dry is fantastic. It's the Urshifu, Urshi Rapid, but again, you probably want to be going for the Moonblast anyway, but it's really good into, obviously opposing water types. This one also has like support moves like Encore. I think it does get Icy Wind. Yeah, it gets Icy Wind. Overall, it really does just get a lot of really good status moves. Obviously, normally you probably want Protect in this last slot, potentially the Encore as well. But it also has options like Nasty Plot as well. So it's like, hey, if you're going to ignore me, I'm going to get +2. And then all of a sudden, I'm just going to run through your team with just Blizzard. So this one, definitely one of the ones I'm most excited for. I do think this is really going to make Snow kind of on the level of, Rain and Sun. Because I do think, Snow and Sand, at least in this generation, has definitely been underwhelming compared to the other two. And Alolan Ninetales is definitely going to be one of the best setters we have in the meta. Now, so the next one here I want to talk about is definitely my favorite Pokemon returning in the DLC, and that is Politoed. For those of you who do not know, I am a massive rain enjoyer, and to me, there is no better rain setter. Well, there's Kyogre, but there's no better rain setter than my guy, Politoed. This one, man, I freaking love this one. Its bulk is pretty good. It's got a really good HP stat, pretty good Spadef stat. Its defense, again, leaves a little bit to be desired, but coming off a 90 base special attack stat, this one does have access to things like Scald, which has, I believe, been revealed to be coming back in the DLC. It has things like Perish, so it's really good on Perish trap teams. It also has like Icy Wind. It has Encore. Like this one does a lot as a rain setter. And dude, I just love Politoed, man. This is like without a doubt my favorite rain setter. Look, I'm almost certain the set you're gonna see on I'm on like this are probably just gonna be like Bold Max. I really don't see any other like set you're probably gonna run on this. Especially with a lot of the physical threats running around. But this mon in rain is going to be absolutely absurd. Like, if you can just sit there, you fire off some... wrong nature there. Sit there, fire off some Scald, some Icy Winds. Because, like, again, this is a mon, like, you kind of can't ignore this thing, right? If it sits there, like... It also has, like, some decent, ooh, that's not what we want. We don't want Spectral Speed. We want special moves. Like, this one has some decent moves, right? Like, it has Blizzard, which probably isn't the best, unless, like, Snow's really, really good. But again, probably don't want it. Earth Power is pretty nice, though. It has things like Ice Beam, you know, Psychic. There's a lot this mon could do. Weather Ball as well is pretty nice as well, especially for opposing weather. But obviously, I do think Skull's just definitely the most consistent. But man, this mon does a lot, dude. Like, I'm so excited to play with this. It's probably going to be the first team I use coming into Regulation E. But even things like Haze, like, you know, if you are worried about things like Dondoza, you've got things like Haze there where you can just, like, you know, get rid of the stat buff. So this is definitely a mon I'm super excited for. Helping Hand is another really good support move as well on Politoed. So yeah, Politoed, probably, I want to say it's definitely a better range setter than Pelipper. And yeah, dude, I'm super excited for this mon. You know, it's pretty basic in what it does, but again, you can run this on some really hyper offensive teams where you're pairing it with, you know, things like maybe Basculege and Urshifu, or you could even just pair it up with like things like Gothitelle, Fluttermane, and run it on like a Perish Trap team where, you know, you've got this like rain mode, but you've also got, you know, the ability just to trap things in, get the Perish songs off, and, you know, really just break down some teams that, you know, were trying to, I guess, answer the rain, but all of a sudden, you know, now they're trapped in Perish and they're not having a good time. Now, the next one here is actually a pretty interesting one, and that is Snorlax. Now, Snorlax in the past has always been like a really, really good belly drum user, right? That's what this mon has done in the past, you know, with things like, you know, Figgy Berry plus its ability Gluttony, you know, that plus Figgy. This mon could basically just belly drum up and then, you know, sit there, click recycle, and, you know, it was pretty damn good. Now, I'm not too sure if the set will be much, you know, different to what we've seen in the past. Unfortunately, it has, you know, lost access to things like Return, but it still does have, you know, Body Slam, which is a pretty decent stab move. But a really, really interesting one as well that I do think we'll probably see creep up a bit here is Heavy Slam. Now, this mon is incredibly good into Fluttermane, right? When you look at this mon here, has an absurdly high HP stat and a really, really good special defense stat. So when you pair this together, like this mon could just straight up wall Fluttermane without having to invest anything, right? And normally this mon too is going to have to, you know, go for things like, say, you know, just like Max here, you know, you're probably just going to go like Impish, right? So you're definitely going to look at like some, you know, potentially stat spread like this. I'm not too sure exactly what the attack stat would have to be for Fluttermane. That's something I'd probably have to calc. But again, it's not that hard to just like invest a little bit into attack and just put yourself in a position where your Heavy Slam's always going to one-shot Fluttermane, which I do think is really good. And this mon will obviously be able to hard wall it. And then on top of that, really all it has to kind of worry about then is all the physical attackers, which I do think coming into like Regulation E, there's going to be a lot more special attackers that are really prevalent. And I do think that is going to, because of that, I do think, you know, the usage of like, say, Fluttermane plus 5 physical attackers is going to drop down a bit. But Snorlax is another one as well that does really benefit from Terra. It's something I haven't really touched on with the other two mons. But Snorlax here, you know, again, with Terra, you can get away from that fighting weakness, potentially go for something like Terra Ghost if you want, which I don't necessarily think is the best. Something like, you know, maybe even like Terra Poison could be really good on this mon, gets rid of, you know, the fighting weakness. But yeah, I do think Snorlax with Terra is going to be a bit of a monster. I do worry that, you know, because of Qian Power and some of its, you know, common partners like Urshi, maybe Snorlax just won't get any play. But it's definitely cool to see this mon coming back. And I do think its ability to, like, hardwall Fluttermane is going to be really, really important. Just to see, you know, its usage go up. So the next one I kind of want to touch on here is actually a personal favorite of mine that I've never really got to use competitively. And it's kind of sad, and that is Vacaville. Now, Vacaville, you know, has a couple things going for it, right? So when we look at this mon, right, you look at its stats. Obviously, its special attack stat is absolutely absurd, right? This mon could literally just run something like this, and it, you know, already that's like incredibly hard. That's what a lot of Fluttermanes try to hit, right, when they go like 116 modest, right? Its speed stat is also quite bad, but due to that, you know, you can run something like this. Obviously, you got the modest there. Change that to quiet real quick. But all of a sudden, this mon hits like an absolute tank. Again, you could probably run this up to like 116 if you wanted. But then you've just like, just dump it here, and then like, you know, look at all these like defensive investments, right? Because you run this thing on Trick Room, obviously. I probably should have, you know, specified that. But you run this thing on Trick Room, you know, you can like, obviously, you know, invest a bit into its defensive stats. The reason we're going so heavily here into the physical defense stat is I'm just gonna slap an Assault Vest on this thing, right? Like this mon with AV and then just like, you know, some like really good stabs. Like this mon gets Thunderbolt, it gets Bug Buzz, Bug Buzz, and then it also like it has some special options. Like Energy Ball is probably like one of its best options it has there. Flash Cannon's another pretty decent option too. But obviously this mon has access to Volt Switch as well, which is obviously like fantastic for pivoting, especially on like an AV set. But then Terra is going to be this mon's best friend, because I think one of the things a mon like Vacaville has is its ability, you know, Levitate paired up with Terra is, you know, absurdly good. We saw in, you know, Series 1, obviously, you know, Hydreigon was able to do a lot of work with Levitate, because, again, it puts you in this position where a lot of Levitate users basically run, you know, 1 or 3 Terra types. They tend to go Poison, Steel, or Fire, right? And Vacaville is the kind of Pokemon that could really benefit from using Fire, because, again, it doesn't really have the ability to, you know, hit the Steel type, say, for example. So going for like Terra Fire plus Terra Blast would put it in like a really nice position against Steel types. And then also on top of that as well, like you're already really good into the water types. You're really good into, some of the other types that, fire types don't really want to deal with. Obviously with Levitate, you don't care. You can kind of ignore it. You would have kind of issues with some ground types. And because of that, you could even look at something like a Terra Grass. But again, when you got something like Levitate, I don't think Terra Grass would be the best option. Especially too because you already are weak to the fire types as well. But yeah, this mon has a lot of, cool things it could do with Terra. It's definitely a mon I would be super, super excited to test out when, the time finally comes. But yeah, Vacaville, I do think this one under Trick Room definitely will have a place with Terra, involved. So the next one I want to take a look at here is actually Coma. Now, Coma is kind of one of those forgotten, pseudo legendaries, right? So this one can kind of do two different things. So one thing I really do like with it is like the ability to go so like Throat Spray. Bulletproof's not bad, but I do think Overcoat just giving you like obviously, an immunity to Amoonguss is like always just like really, really good in VGC. But then you got the two Clangorous moves. So you got Clangorous Souls and Clangorous Scales, right? Cool. Oh my god, it's got Clangorous Soul. There we go. So obviously, for those who don't know, Clangorous Soul here, you give up 130 HP, but you get +1 to all your stats. So an Omni boost, which is pretty damn nutty. And then Clangorous Scales here is an absolutely absurd special dragon type move here. Lowers your defense by 1, but it's 110 base power and a 100% accurate, which is pretty damn good. Then I believe this one gets Flash Cannon too. Yeah, it gets Flash Cannon, it gets Flamethrower. Gets a couple good options here. Obviously, your mon is pretty weak to fairy types as it is. So having the option to go for something like, Terra Fire plus Flamethrower, I do think is really, really, really cool. And then obviously, something like Protect on a set like this. But again, with like the Throat Spray, the ability just to get the +2 special attack, and then you just kind of sit there with like Flamethrower, Clangorous Scales, and kind of just nuke through everything, I do think is really, really cool. But also, this one has another pretty cool set that we can look at here, and that is the Iron Defense Body Press set. So this one is a really, really cool Iron Defense Body Press set. We have seen it's done really well in the past. Obviously, like, again, I didn't touch on the stats. This one, absurd stats, 125 base physical defense. Not to mention, it's already a fighting type, so it's already like a better Goodra in that sense. In terms of item here, you just go for something like lefties, right? We want lefties, yeah. Something like lefties is always good. But yeah, Iron Defense Body Press. It also has some, access to something like Iron Head, which again, I do think Iron Head, in Terra Steel is potentially going to be one of the best Terras on this mon. I do think like Terra and Fire, the two it benefits the most from, just because obviously it's so weak to the fairy types. But yeah, having something like that, and then you just slap like a Protect here. And then all of a sudden this mon, like, it doesn't need that much investment to one-shot Fluttermanes. And then obviously with Body Press as well, if you get to +2 on this mon, like, go max HP, this mon's really hard to take down, right? Like, let me just drop its level here. But yeah, like, its stats are, like, really, really good, dude. Like, you don't even need much attack. Like, if I had to guess, this Iron Head here, like, with Terra Steel would probably just, like, one-shot bulky Fluttermanes anyway. But yeah, really, really cool sets on Coma here. I do think it will probably be the best Iron Defense Body Press set we have. But also its special set is also, like, really, really cool. Like, as I said, I think the Terra Fire set will be really nice. So I'm really curious to see how Coma goes, especially in Regulation E if it is available. Now, the next one here actually might be the best returning mon, and that is Dustklop. And Dustklop is really good for a couple of reasons, but it is obviously one of the premier Trick Room setters we have in the game. And the reason for that is Violet is a, stupidly good item on a mon with these stats. Obviously, again, its HP, its HP stats pretty lackluster, right? Let's drop that to level 50. You see this here, base 40, it's pretty bad, right? But the cool thing is its defense stats are absolutely absurd. With Violet, this goes up to a 225 on each of those. Obviously, you can invest even further into them. Its base 25, speed stat is like pretty arse. It allows you to underspeed a lot of, the really good Trick Room mons. And not just about that, you just have so many defensive stats to play with here. You're always going to split them into the defense here. I would probably say the Spadef will probably be the way people go. Just because Fluttermane with Shadow Ball is obviously like a bit of a threat. But again, you go for, something like Sassy, right? And you just like, chuck that there. Bang. This mon, super bulky. Obviously has access to Trick Room. We already said that one. Nightshade is also like really, really consistent on these like kind of Pokemon, right? Like that guaranteed 50 damage is just super, super nice. And then on top of that as well, it just has like a lot of great support moves, right? It has things like Will-O-Wisp. It has Icy Wind if you want, which you're probably not going to ever use. Bulldoze was another really cool tech as well. People used on it back in the day. Like obviously people used it to proc, things like, Rhyperior's weakness policy. Another really, really cool, good move on it too, actually, is Pain Split. And the reason Pain Split is so good is because its HP stat is already so bad. But like any like half decent bulky mon, you just kind of deal so much damage to him with the Pain Split. So I do think Dustklop is going to be one of the premier Trick Room setters. Again, this one with like access to things like Terra is also really cool because you could go for something like, say, a Terra Dark, and then all of a sudden, you're no longer weak to the Shadow Balls, you resist them. Obviously, with Terra Dark, you are weak to fighting moves and fairy moves, but again, the Ghost type, immune to the fighting type. So I do think there's a lot of cool concepts this one will be able to pull off with a Terra. And I do think it's just going to be super bulky and really, really annoying to deal with under Trick Room. Now, speaking of Trick Room here, we do have another mon that'll probably use Trick Room that I personally love, and I'm really hoping it gets a lot of play here, and that's Conkelder. Now, my biggest worry with Conk is obviously we have, you know, Iron Hands in the meta, which is just an absurdly good fighting type with very, very similar stats, right? You know, Conk and Hands are very, very similar, but Conk is a little bit slower, and it has probably better abilities for really sweeping, right? Obviously, you know, Hands with, you know, Booster Energy or, you know, Electric Train can put out a lot of damage, but Conkelder's access to both Guts and Iron Fist does make it really, really good, especially under Trick Room. Now, this one has a couple things you can do, right? One, you probably want to go with, say, like Guts plus Flame Orb, or you can go like the Iron Fist Assault Vest set. Now, I do think on paper this is the best one, because obviously when you look at the stats here, you know, pretty good HP stat, you know, decent defense stat, really, really good attack stat, obviously. But it is that special defense stat that really lets this mon down. So I do think having the ability to, you know, probably just like run up a bit of Spadef on it too is going to be really, really important going forward for it, right? And then again, like that's a really, you know, really bulky one right there. You throw something like Adamant on this. Actually, what am I saying? If you're running this on Trick Room, boys, you probably want to run like negative speed here, right? Chuck that there. You know, 45 again, it underspeeds Iron Hands. It does underspeed quite a few things under Trick Room. So really, really cool there. But with the Iron Fist AV, it allows you to run things like Mach Punch, right? So you get that priority, you get that regen from the Drain Punch. But then again, in terms of Iron Fist, dude, there's a lot of moves this one can run. It has a lot of utility. So I do believe it gets access to the elemental punches. So we do see the Iron Punch, the Ice Punch. Does it not get? It gets Thunder Punch. Does it not get Fire Punch? Oh, it does get Fire Punch. Sorry, I'm just blind. Obviously access to Earthquake, which is really good. Gets Knock Off. I believe it also gets a Rock Slide, right? Rock Slide. Yeah, it gets Rock Slide. So yeah, this one has like a lot of really, really good utility. And like once again, we're talking about what Terra can do for some of these mons. Like a mon like Conkelder that hits so damn hard with like a defensive Terra can be absolutely absurd, right? Like if you give this mon something that just like, you know, resists the fairy types, all of a sudden like this mon could just be like so much better, dude. Like even like just the Terra Steel, right? Like, oh dude, Conkelder's like, I'm so excited to use this one, man. Like it's hard for me to like describe my excitement to use this, but I just love Conkelder, man. This one's really, really cool. It's gonna start slapping things with the its big concrete poles here, but yeah, this one, dude, with Terra, I think is definitely gonna be really, really good, especially on some Trick Room teams. Now, we have already touched on one water type, but there is another bulky water type coming back here, and that is Milotic. Now, this one is pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. So, stats-wise, Milotic is a really, really cool Pokemon, right? It's basically the, you know, the opposite of Gyarados, for those of you who didn't know. Well, not the opposite, but it's got the same stats, just, you know, spread out a little bit differently. Obviously, Gyarados is, you know, weakest stat is its special attack stat, and its highest stat is its attack stat. So, yeah, you look at Milotic here, obviously an absurdly high special defense stat, which is really, really cool. A really solid HP stat, you know, pretty subpar defense, but it's okay. You know, we're going to touch on that in a second. And a pretty decent special attack stat here. So, couple things this mon has going for it. So first of all, competitive. Competitive is fantastic into a meta where, you know, Icy Wind and Intimidate is getting spammed, because again, if you if you intimidate this mon, and then give it like a competitive boost, all of a sudden, like even if you're not invested, a +2, you know, like Scald from this mon is going to do a lot of damage. Another option it does have too is actually Muddy Water. And I kind of want to touch on that, because one really, really cool thing with Muddy Water on this one, right, is when you look at this mon again, like with, you know, I was saying it has a really nice HP stat, special defense stats like pretty absurd. Its only real issue here is its, you know, its defensive stats. So what can this mon do to fix up its defensive weakness? And that is Click Coil. What Coil does is obviously it gives you an attack boost, which this mon doesn't really care about, but it gives you a defense boost and an accuracy boost. The accuracy is really, really good with Muddy Water. So, you know, having like a guaranteed Muddy Water hit both is really, really good. And then again, like we touched on it before, like buffing up this defense stat, like it is the one weakness this one has, and the ability just to like buff it up, I think, is like really, really important. You could also like run this thing up to like 107 if you want to like outspeed things under Tailwind. You know, just invest the rest there. You just go for like Modest. And yeah, I think this mon could be really, really cool with that. And there was one other tech with Milotic I wanted to talk about. What was it? Coil, Muddy Water, Scald. I feel like there was one other tech I'm missing here. Oh, sorry, it's not really even a tech. Ice Beam. Obviously, I think it has both access to Ice Beam and Icy Wind. Yeah. So it's really, really good into Landorus, which is really cool. It can give you speed control. But yeah, this one here, I definitely think has the potential to be really, really good. It does have Recover as well to keep itself alive. I do think its biggest issue is going to be probably the potentially just the output of physical damage. Like, it's not going to have that turn or two it needs to set up, but nonetheless, it is really cool to potentially just have like another bulky water coming into the meta. Because I do think, you know, for most of Scarlet and Violet, we really have lacked just good water types, right? Like, obviously, you know, in, you know, the first couple series, we had Dozer, we had Palafin. Obviously, Iron Bundle was there too, but it didn't really feel like a water type. And then recently, we've had Urshifu Rapid, but it really has felt like every regulation, we've kind of been limited to like, you know, 3 good water types max, and it's just going to be nice to have some more, you know, just solid water types in the meta. All right, so we are nearing the end here, but the next one I kind of want to touch on here is Chandelure. Now, Chandelure is a really, really interesting mon for a couple of reasons. So, obviously, Chandelure is a very, very fragile Pokemon. You look at its HP stat, you know, its defenses aren't bad, but its HP stat is pretty subpar, but it does have an insanely good special attack stat and a pretty decent speed tier where it can function both under Tailwind and Trick Room. So, this is a mon that most of the time is going to run an item like Focus Sash, right? It's too fragile not to run it. But it does have the Flash Fire boost. Now, Flash Fire is really, really cool because, again, I think having an immunity in Pokemon is like, it just always makes you like really good. So having Flash Fire paired up with the Ghost type is like insanely good, right? It gives you 3 immunities, and just basically means like this mon can like switch it on things that, you know, other Pokemon can't. It also does have access to Infiltrator as well, which could be really good, obviously, you know, if Screens picks up. But not just Screens, but obviously Substitute as well. Now, this one, it's pretty cookie cutter in what it does, right? So it normally goes for like Heat Wave, it goes for like Shadow Ball, Protect. You can always like slap Substitute on this one as well, which is pretty good. But I do like Trick Room. Now, again, Trick Room is like really interesting on a mon like this because its speed tier is like pretty decent. Similar to Milo, you just like run it to like 157. And because we are like, again, we're Focus Sash, you could even just go like Max here if you wanted. But if we're just like looking at something like this, right? And then probably just like this is what I want to say. And then you just run like Modest here. Modest, split the defenses. Like this one hits so incredibly hard. Like 145 base special attack is insane. And then, you know, these Heat Waves, these Shadow Balls are going to deal absolutely absurd amounts of damage. You got the Trick Room there as well, just to like, obviously, you know, if you're going up against a fellow hyper offensive matchup, you can do it. But if not, you know, you pair this thing with things like Tornadus or, you know, potentially Icy Wind support from like Iron Bundle. All of a sudden, this mon can like really just start putting out a lot of damage. And again, the Ghost typing on a Trick Room setter is just, it's too good. Having that, you know, built-in immunity to the Fake Out is always like insanely good. And then again, we're talking about a squishy Pokemon. Defensive terrors can be king on these mons, guys. Like you could run something like Terra Dark to, you know, make sure that you're tanking Shadow Balls and you're also immune to pranks or taunts. You know, again, this is a fire type. Terra Water could be really good on it. Even Terra Grass could also be pretty good as well. But yeah, it's a really, really cool Pokemon. I'm not sure how viable it's going to be, but its ability to put out damage when it's, you know, put in the right situation could be the key to this mon getting a lot of play. And then finally, to wrap up these 10 Pokemon, a personal favorite of mine, a mon I've used plenty of times back in the day, and that is Clefairy. For those of you who do not know, Clefairy is an Avaya Light Brain Guard user. Now, look, I have seen quite a few people say like, oh, like Clef's not going to be good. You know, Mousehold does the job better, blah, blah, blah. Now, look, Mousehold does get access to Super Fang, which Clefairy doesn't. Like, Clef does not have access to just a reliable, you know, damage move, right? But Clef is a hell of a lot bulkier. The HP stats are like basically the same. I think Mouse is 74. But Clef can like just max it out here. And then with a Violite, dude, it is so much bulkier, right? Like, if you're worried about like the meta being physical, you know, you just do something like this, go bold, chuck that there. All of a sudden, this mon is an absolutely absurd bulky mon on the physical end. It is also really, really bulky on the special end. It gets a lot of really good support. Like, obviously, Follow Me's, it's like bread and butter. It has something like After You if you do run it on a Trick Room team. You do also have things like Icy Wind. I think Icy Wind is really, really good on this one because, like, you know, sure, you kind of want to ignore the Clefairy because it's like, you know, you taunt it and then just say, like, oh, just leave it. It's a Clefairy. What's it going to do? But all of a sudden, you know, it hits you with a couple Icy Winds. Its partner protects a few times. And then next thing you know, like, Clefairy, like, while it's not dealing damage, is being super, super annoying, right? It does get things to, access to things like Encore, which, again, under Trick Room can be really, really good. It does have quite, you know, a few good status moves here. Obviously, you know, Screens is decent, although I don't think it's ever really going to use it. Both Moonlight and Soft Boil as well are really, really good for, obviously, keeping yourself healthy, which, again, Mouse doesn't have access to keep itself healthy, which is a big, big difference. Thunder Wave as well, you know, everyone knows the yellow button is kind of annoying. Ally Switch is, like, potentially a thing, but, like, let's be honest, just click follow you. Follow me. But yeah, this one is really cool. Obviously, it's a fairy type too, so it does resist, you know, certain things like fighting type moves, which can be really, really important. I don't think it really gets any other like good special attacks, right? Obviously, like, it does have access to things like Dazzling Gleam. Potentially, like, Grass Knot could be good on this one as well. But yeah, there's nothing really on this one that you probably want to run outside of the Icy Wind on the offensive side. But yeah, Clef is like just a really, really good support. It's like super, super bulky. You can do a lot for your team. And I do think it's kind of being slept on. Like as I said, a lot of people in the community are saying like, why run this when you can just run Mouse Hold? It's like, well, Mouse Hold doesn't have sustain and it also doesn't have speed control. So yeah, and it's like if you get taunted, then you're kind of just sitting there clicking Super Fang, which don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but it's not like the greatest thing ever. Unfortunately, this one does not get access to beat up there. Did we get like, does it get Bullet Seed? Nah, it didn't get Bullet Seed. Rock Blast. Nah, it doesn't. So it doesn't have that niche that Mouse has. But yeah, dude, Clef is without a doubt one of the best Flamize supports in the game. You know, we've seen it been run in restricted format, so I think it will always have a place in the game. And you know, a pure Fairy typing is a pretty good defensive typing. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know down below what you think of these mods here. Let me know if there's any Pokemon you think maybe I missed that are going to be really good. Obviously, you know, we didn't touch on any of the new Pokemon here, but that's just because we don't know what they do. But yeah, let me know down below if you think, you know, maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe something like Mamoswine's going to be really, really good. You know, maybe this is finally Shiftry's time to shine in the sun. Let me know. God damn, man, I'm trying to do a natural. I can't English. I'm sorry, boys. Yeah, if you got this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know the deal, boys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.